The only way we can slow down and make sure that everybody's doing it uniformly and asking all the questions that our agency is requiring they ask, we've got to do it with a form.
In the long run, it actually saves them time because they don't forget to ask certain questions, or they're just like, yep, done.
And when everybody has a clear, like, this is the steps to take, we increase our efficiency. Hello, and welcome to the Ridiculously Amazing Insurance Agent Podcast. We're here to be the insurance industry's best friend, and I'm joined today by Therese and Stephen Harrington, Descout Eux, if I say it.
Dakota.
Yeah, well, that's how you say it. I like to pronounce every vowel.
Descout.
Descot Eux. So we're going to talk a little bit about endorsements, something your agency does all day long, every day, in and out. Endorsements represent a time of change. Change means we need to go through the policy and make sure people have the right insurance coverage. And this is where you have to get into the mindset of right versus fast. You could change a vehicle very quickly. Can you do it the right way with confirming information, looking at gap, making sure that they have the right rental car reimbursement fast? I could argue the answer to that is not like McDonald's, like, hey, I order and 2 minutes later I get my burger. And this is where I think independent agents really have to stick out from the crowd is, are we just doing the transaction or are we trying to wow our customer? And I'm going to lean on the wow scenario. So we're going to talk a little bit today about endorsements, endorsement checklists. If anybody is trying to fall asleep, this is probably a great topic to just woo you into the slumbering land, except for the fact that we try to hit a punch, make sure everybody out there knows, do not go lower your standards. And this is something I'm sort of obsessed with in agencies. Like, are you lowering your standards because you're scared Sally is going to walk out because you don't want to confirm the location of the vehicle, or where it's being garaged? Are you sure that that's the real reason? It's really, really, really important. And when we do an effective endorsement, we actually solve a lot of problems that come back later on down the pike. So, Therese, tell us a little bit about your feeling of how we create a form to gather information on endorsements. What does that look like in your mind?
I think we just need to think about what are all the things. When somebody's changing a vehicle out, we used to just go, okay, what's the VIN number? Are we adding it today? Are we removing any other vehicles? Boom. Any changes in coverage. That was it. But what we're not realizing is there's so many opportunities in that one phone call. Number one, oh, is this where you live? Is this your correct phone number and your correct email address? Oh, you've got a new car. Do we need gap coverage? You make sure they have gap coverage, because if your company offers gap and they don't get it with the dealership, they may not know what gap coverage is. Mm-hmm. Are they using the vehicle for personal use or work? Because of COVID, a lot of people work from home. So a lot of things have changed. And it gives you the opportunity. If they don't have their home with you, it also gives you the opportunity to say, hey, I see you don't have your home with us. Where do you have that insured? Mm-hmm. So, and I think we try to wing it. We try to get the VIN number, get the date to add it, and we try to get the coverages, and we try to just keep going. Let's just go. We're quick. Let's run. And we've got to slow down. And the only way we can slow down and make sure that everybody's doing it uniformly and asking all the questions that our agency is requiring they ask, we've got to do it with a form. Verify name, address, email address, phone number. Verify the vehicles that are on the policy currently, whether they're changing one vehicle out, two vehicles out, confirm it, because I can't tell you how many claims have happened where a vehicle was not on the policy because they expected the dealership to call the insurance company instead of calling themselves, and it didn't happen. I know of at least 5 situations where a claim was not covered because they never added the vehicle, and that's bad. You don't want to be paying for that.
It's scary, right?
Yes. And sometimes people will call in and say, hey, I want to trade in the green Dodge for the red Dodge. And you're like, I can't see the colors. So we need to get a form. We need to discuss with our, the people that do all these endorsements. What are the questions we could be asking that we're not asking? And that's how you create your form.
I think, too, that sometimes we forget about some of the other policies that might be affected by making a change on a policy. So is there an umbrella or excess? Is there another line that we're also going to have to alter or update? One of the common things I would see is people will call in to update their address, or they move and we update the business address at one location, but we don't update the commercial auto or anything else because we were so focused on the one policy. So a good checklist would be like, okay, great. Did you verify address and did you update it on all policies?
I always loved it when they called in to change their address and they had a homeowner's policy or something and the address was changed and they never asked about the homeowner's policy. That's
Well, and I'll say in defense of the team, sometimes I think like, again, there's so many questions you could ask,
Yeah.
right? And this is what's interesting to me. So we have a lot of forms and we're talking particularly about an endorsement form, right? What I found with forms is the green team, I'm going to call them, the newer team members love, like adore the form. Like, can I have a form for everything that I do, right? The OGs are like, I don't need a form. But then you listen to the recorded phone call and they forgot 20% of the things that they needed to ask. Like I literally listened to a sales call where someone forgot to ask the property address and had to call the person back. I'm like, you're quoting a home.
That's so awesome.
Well, which also meant that they didn't follow the procedure of looking it up on Zillow or the tax assessor's website. Like the whole thing fell apart. And now, is she skilled? Sure. Does she hit her sales goal? Yes. And so we struggle sometimes, I think, with the idea of like, well, good enough is good enough. And again, I'm going to like stress to everybody, do not lower your standards. Do not do it. You will regret it and you will get upset and you will get frustrated and you will not want to live your life that way. It's not a good way to live. So, Stephen, what are like challenges, right, that we have with with trying to get people to use like an endorsement form? So, what are the pushback that you see in agencies? Because what we know in advance, we can certainly prepare for in advance.
Right. I think it's either, like you said, the seasoned staff is the OGs are like, oh, I got this. I know what I'm doing. You don't need to tell me what to do. You're just trying to add more things to my plate. But in the long run, it actually saves them time because they don't forget to ask certain questions, or they're just like, yep, done. And I think that we need to monitor it once it's released to make sure it's being adapted. I think that's also one of the agency's biggest struggles. They're like, but then I have to babysit. And in my opinion, it's not babysitting, it's making sure we're adhering to the standard of the agency so the clients are getting the same experience. So I think the biggest challenge again is getting the team to use it first of all, and then monitoring it or spot checking it to make sure it's happening. But it can be quick and simple. Like, great, let's pull a call, let's do a random audit. Did you do it? Great. If not, what prevented you from being able to do it this time? And how are we going to fix it next time? But I think that also sometimes we make the checklist so ridiculously long that it is kind of a time suck. So I think we also need to find that happy balance of looking for the major risks or looking for the major things to ask for or talk about, but not make it so redundant that it's like, oh, 7 minutes later, the form is full. So I think it's also whenever we're doing anything manually, it can make it more difficult. So is it already on the desktop? Is it in the management system where they can just pull it up, check the boxes and drop it to the file? We want to make it easy for them to be able to adapt and attach, because it also just shouldn't be like, oh, I went through it on a sheet of paper on my desk and then moved it to the other pile. It needs to be automated or easy to use.
Definitely. And I think sometimes one of the resistance you face is like, it doesn't matter what it is. It's not just an endorsement form. It's all the things, right? So you want to kind of test it. And we always say when we release a form, like you have the ability to send us edits. What do you want it to be? But a lot of times it's like, well, I just don't want a form. Cool. That won't help us out, right? In the long run. And so when we think about it, when you really do get down to like using an endorsement form or a quote sheet or any type of form, it helps everybody stay organized, right? So if there's a form, we're missing pieces of information, you can save it. And when the client gets back to you, just continue. Where if you just write down chicken scratch, it's going to be impossible, right? It also reduces errors. So when like literally the last step is save and attach and put an activity in, we then don't have documentation errors, right? And when everybody has a clear, like this is the steps to take, we increase our efficiency because somebody is not taking down notes and then doing it after the phone call, right? Some people are doing first call resolution. Some people are not. We need to embrace first call resolution just to survive in this marketplace. We don't have the time to get off the phone, process, then wait for the next call.
I love a good checklist because Friday afternoon when I start to get crispy,
You
and
get
I'm thinking about
crispy?
the
Stop
weekend.
it.
No, never. I'm a perfect perfect angel every day, all day. But every once in a while, when the mood strikes and I'm cranky after a long week and dealing with cranky customers all week, the last thing I'm going to remember is those two important questions. But if I have the checklist, I'm just like, fine, I did it, done. And it helps you kind of not think so hard as well. Like it's less stress for you if you're following the steps in the checklist.
Definitely. Definitely. So when we talk about how we get these checklists done, first of all, we have them in our endorsement process pack. So we have one for home changes, auto changes, really, really important. Commercial is slightly different. So we focus on the ones that we know we can nail down. The idea is that you want to think like, so people like Teresa said it, oh, I can change a vehicle. Okay, what if they're getting divorced? What if we're adding a driver? Are they replacing a vehicle? Are they just adding a vehicle? Are they taking one off? Are they trying to tell you that they want to reduce coverage? There's a ton in there. And the ones that we don't do all the time, like divorces, tend to get people riled up. And it's your biggest exposure time too, right? Like, you call somebody like, take the SOB off my policy. Like, what would you like me to do here? So I think we really have to kind of go ahead and say, what do we need to have on there? But you need to make sure every one of your processes that has a form, do we confirm contact information? Yes. Yes, 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 double yes, triple yes. Do we want to use this as an opportunity to maybe cross-sell or upsell? If I'm going from a Toyota Corolla to a Suburban, I might need more rental car reimbursement. And that's the things, and this is what frustrates me. Those are the things that our clients expect us to do. They don't expect to have a car accident and then go get like, the $20 a day rental car and then figure out how to put 4 kids in it. Like they expect us to have their back and do these things. And we still rush through transactions. Like this other person on the other end of the phone isn't having expectations of us, which is crazy. And one of the things that you want to do is make sure that whatever you're doing that, Stephen kind of touched upon it, we have to audit. But here's the thing. If they just start using the form, that's step 1. So the first thing I would audit is just, are you or are you not? And if not, what was the actual reason? Because I forgot. Great. Remember, here's a little note on your desk. We're going to make sure it's front and center. And after a while, it's very clear to me that this becomes insubordination. So there's a difference between someone trying and like, oh man, out of 10, I did 8. You're trying. That's amazing. And I'm just not doing it.
Right.
Oh, I forgot. I got busy. That's what everybody says when they want to be insubordinate. So, Therese, how do we implement the checklist, right? We need to get buy-in. We want to make sure people are on the bus. And obviously, we don't want these things to happen, but they do. So how do we get the most people on board?
We have to go in and say, guess what? We have this awesome form that we're going to start using, and it's going to help us streamline how we do these endorsements. And it's going to help us ask all the questions we forget to ask. And then you're going to have your EOR. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to use. And this is how we're going to do it. So you need to get excited about it. The leaders need to be excited about it. They need to be on board with it. If you have leaders or managers that aren't, which I have worked for agents where you would talk to them about it and they'd be like, hey, that doesn't help. Your leaders and your managers have to be excited. They have to accept it. They have to know that this is the way their agency is heading. And remember, the staff work for you. You pay your staff. That means the staff should be doing what the leader requires. If they're not doing what you require, then you're going to have to warn them and you're going to have to write them up. But you have to be excited about it. You have to be, this is a checklist. We're going to adhere to it because we've noticed that these questions are not being asked. And if you have a sheet in front of you and the customer says, well, last time I talked to you, you said that same thing. You can always say, this is something my agency requires us to ask because we want to make sure that you're protected properly. And if a claim were to happen, we've got you covered and we have all the information. So you're actually doing your customer a service by following these checklists. So we need to stop being selfish, and we need to adhere to these policies endorsement forms because we're helping our customers.
I think so. So Stephen, do you want to wrap us up and tell us a little bit about how we can help people get an endorsement process rocking in their agency?
Yes. So first of all, I have a hot tip that popped in my mind while Teresa was talking. Hot tip for our Hawksoft users out there, you can use the pencil icon and create a checklist that becomes part of the log note that they can type notes into.
Look at
I know
you
some of-
doing a shameless plug.
I know some of our other systems and management systems can do that as well, but it makes it easy to just have it right there in the log, right? Just fill in the notes. But we do offer the process pack. So we have the 10 process pack, we have the templates, we have them standalone or all together. And we have lots of checklists available for you to use as well, so you don't have to recreate the wheel. Again, like we've talked about in the past, I think the hardest part is finding a starting point.
Mm-hmm.
But once we have it, we can make it our own because we see other things and we're like, this is dumb and stupid. Oh, but I like the format. Let me make it mine. Or, wow, this is extremely overwhelming and I'm never going to get buy-in from my team. So we can cut it down a little bit. Or we could just say, guess what, guys? I'm a hero. I have a process I purchased. So I'm a hero. I purchased a process. I was working with an agency a couple days ago and they were talking about answering and transferring phones. And I just started asking the questions that were in the leadership setup guide for the process. And then I'm like, guys, now we just plug this in here and we're done. And they were like, that was so simple. I'm like, you can now do it too. Right. So sometimes it's just getting the questions or figuring out what a good process looks like or what a good endorsement checklist looks like, and then just sticking to it or adapting it as it needs to be altered.
I love that. So everybody, it's no longer the time where you don't need this. Okay. So we need to go ahead and get our process packs done, get your endorsements. And remember, it's not just a process. All of these things come with it. We've got follow-up emails, everything templatized you need. It's like in a nice little box if you wanted the perfect endorsement process that you could just help roll out with your team. So don't delay. For $200, you get all the forms, all the follow-up emails. I mean, it's insane. So just check it out. And our next podcast is going to be on insurance customer experience. I might get kind of fired up on this one. Can it be more than a transaction?
Well, I have stories to share. I'm so excited.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll let everybody go so that they can get all their sleeps in before the next podcast. Okay. So 7 sleeps until you see Steven get excited with his stories again.
Well, I'm fired up for a transaction can be more.
Yes. Well, we will get you there, bud. So, all right, everybody. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you in the next podcast.